for Radio Disney's Backyard Show.
The show that dares to ask the big questions that concern you. Questions like,
what's going on in the schools?
What's this I hear about volunteering at the hospital?
Hey, anything fun happening this weekend?
If you care about it, we talk about it on the once a week Tell Me What's Going On Around Here radio program, Radio Disney's Backyard Show.
Let's go.
Good morning, AM 640 listeners. This is DJ Sarah Jane, and you are listening to The Backyard Show. As technology invades our lives, especially the lives of our youth, we see children's literature changing. Despite the popularity of technology and social networking, books for young adults are going back to simpler storylines and putting emphasis on teaching values and turning away from the world of technology. Basically, young adult books are returning back to basics. Why is this? Why are they returning back to basics? Today I have with me noted children's author E.G. Carter, author of Carlesia, The Passing of the Guard, and the Carlesia book series. Mr. Carter is going to give us an in-depth look as to why these books are going back to basics. Also, we're going to be discussing his new series, Carlesia, a 4-book series that tells the adventure of a young boy named Eddie and the adventures that he goes through in this mystical land called Carlesia. Good morning, E.G. Carter. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Not a problem.
So you came out with a book recently, right?
I have.
And
I came out with Carlesia. It's a series, so it'll be a series of 4 books, and the first one's called The Passing of the Guard.
Okay, so let's talk a little about it. What is The Passing of the Guard about? What's going on there?
So it's about a young boy who's 10 years old. His name is Eddie Casket, and he moves into a neighborhood, and everybody knows the stress of moving into a new neighborhood. And to add to that, on his grandfather's deathbed, he finds out that all these wild stories his grandfather has been telling him are true, and that he's left something in his barn for him to find, and it's part of his legacy. And when he finds out what it is, it's a bracelet that actually opens portals in his neighborhood. And so when he travels to Carlesia for the first time, he actually goes from 10 years old until 16 years old. So the character actually changes in an instant to a 16-year-old man, and he has to deal with some of those emotions. And he goes to Carlesia, he meets a lot of friends, and he realizes that he's with a long legacy of Carlusian guards that ended with his grandfather and went back several generations. And he has to fight an evil warlord named Lorzard. He has to get his friends to help him, and he has to get all the new people and characters that he meets in Carlesia to help him. And along the way, he realizes that his friends that he meet, Dan and Scotty, in his new neighborhood that he just moved in, it's called Drayton Woods, they actually accidentally get thrown into Carlesia with him, and then they become a guardian too, unbeknownst to them. They never signed up for it. Their family wasn't involved at all. So now it's the 3 of them traveling back and forth trying to help the Carlusian people keep peace and to keep evil from coming back into Carlesia.
Wow. Interesting storyline. Huh.
Thank you.
So are his friends also jumping from 10 to 16?
They are, and so one of the criteria are you have to be 10 years old in order to go. So that's like a kickoff to why Eddie was chosen. And Eddie had, he was several grandchildren up to his grandfather, and they called him Pop. So Eddie was chosen because he was 10 years old, and he was a direct descendant of Adam Casket.
Okay. Well, now, did his grandfather start his adventures when he was 10, or how did that work?
He did. So there's a whole dynamics of how you get there, right? So you have to be 10, and his grandfather, and so Eddie was actually the first one in a legacy that skipped. His father didn't go. And so it was a big dynamics of how do you get the next guardian there, and Pop had to actually pick one. So Pop's father went, Pop's father's father went, and so on and so forth. And so at 10 years old, you're introduced to Carlesia by your father, supposedly, and then you travel there with him on your first trip. Well, that didn't really happen with Eddie.
Oh, so he had to do all this on his own.
Right, and so there's the dynamics of, like while he's in Drayton Woods, he's hearing all these cool stories about this faraway land called Carlesia and all these things that his grandfather did to help the Carlusian people, and his father constantly was telling him, now, remember, this is just an old man telling you stories. All this is not true.
Did his father know it was true, or is that something you find out in the book?
He thinks it is. His father went one time, and he got really freaked out, and he thinks it's a dream.
All right.
So he never went back.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
How many series are you expecting to write with Carlucia?
I expect to write 4 books in the series.
Okay. Oh, yeah, books in the series.
Uh-huh. And the series will be Carlucia, and it's a name that I kind of created, so it's off my name. My last name is Carter, so a lot of things in the book have C-A-R or something like that. It's kind of close to me. So Carlucia is spelled C-A-R-L-O-U-S-I-A.
All right. Now, where did you come up with this idea, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, a lot of people ask me that, and I don't mind at all.
Okay.
I guess some of it's stories that I've always had in my head. But to back up for a step, the reason I actually wrote this book and the reason I'm writing this series is because I have dyslexia. And I wanted to overcome something that was keeping me back. I have a computer science degree, and I played 17 years of football. I actually had a scholarship to play college football here in Georgia, and the whole time I struggled with English, and I was very math-minded, very science-minded. So I have a computer science degree, and when I left college, I actually started multiple startup high-tech corporations. I work with a Fortune 100 company today and still working in the computer field. And my boys, at that time they were younger, but I have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old now, and I wanted to prove to them that they could actually do whatever they set their mind to do. Don't let anything hold you back. And I think this day and time, so many kids are kind of told, well, get your head out of the clouds, and you don't really need to be an actor, or you don't want to play, Major League Baseball or professional sports or whatever your desires to do, because it's so hard to get in there. It's not. Don't waste your time trying to be the top 1 or 2%. Well, I tend to believe you can follow your dreams. You need to just run it out until it doesn't make sense anymore. I'm not saying that you give up everything in your life to try to be a Mark Spitz or the greatest swimmer in the world, right? Or a Phelps. But if you want to be the best on your swim team and you want to try to go to college for swimming, or maybe you want to help the Olympics in swimming or be associated with swimming, do what makes you passionate, and don't let something like dyslexia, or maybe you're not the fastest, or maybe you're not the tallest, hold you back. Try to find a way to follow your dreams. And if it doesn't work out, then you can always say, well, at least I tried.
And a lot of kids don't hear that much anymore, that shoot for your dreams theory.
Right.
I mean, that's great that you are overcoming dyslexia and writing these books, because they seem so interesting with powerful stories. Does the main character, Eddie, does he go through things of overcoming doubts, I guess you could say? So, yeah,
he does, but he doesn't have any learning disabilities or anything like that. But you think about, all of a sudden I'm a 10-year-old kid, and he's very, very close to his grandfather. And so was a pretty hard scene for me to write in the book. But as his grandfather's dying, Eddie wants to do anything he can to try to help him, And even while he's in the hospital, he looks at his parents and said, all these people he talks about from Carlucia, can they just help him and keep him from dying?
Right.
And his parents are like, those are just stories, Eddie. There's nothing you can you really can't do anything to help Pop. He's an old man. And so Eddie struggles with losing his grandfather, and he struggles with doing it right after he moves into a new neighborhood. But then he finds this friendship with Dan and Scotty that just flourishes to be almost like the Three Musketeers, right?
Right.
And so that kind of helps get over that part. And then he actually has to go to Carlucia the first time, and he has one of my favorite characters in the book is a little 2-foot, he's not a rat, but he's a little hairy kind of sarcastic monster, but he's about 2 foot tall. He's gray, he has red tufts for hair, and he has these really sharp teeth and a huge blue tongue. And his name is Wahaha, and he's Eddie's guardian while he's at Carlucia. And so Wahaha can actually come back and forth to Drayton Woods and to Carlucia, but when he's in Drayton Woods, he's invisible. So he kind of communicates with Eddie with wind that blows by as he circles his head or goes by him.
Does Eddie recognize that is the creature?
Well, he didn't at first, right? So the first time he goes through to Carlucia, he realizes that this wind he's following is actually this 2-foot monster, and he thinks he wants to eat him, right? So he'd never seen him before. So Eddie's thrust in there with, all these strange things that are happening in Carlucia, and he has to adapt as a 10-year-old mind, but then all of a sudden he's turned into a 16-year-old body. And then when he comes back to Drayton Woods, then he has to deal with, I was I know what it's like to be 16, and even when he fights some of the evil in Carlucia, when he comes back to Drayton Woods, he has to deal with the emotion of, one time I have him, he's looking at his pajamas, and they're football pajamas, sort of like a Joe Namath or a football Peyton Manning or something like that.
Right,
and he's like,
right.
These are such baby pajamas. And then he has to realize, well, I am 10 years old just because I'm going through all this.
So that must be so confusing for a character, even for you to write this, going from a 10-year-old's mind to a 16-year-old's mind, but the same character.
Well, and I tried to write it so I know you said your demographics with the radio fans are from 3 to 16. So I actually tried to write this book to be about the 10-year-old, like the characters, but to go even further than the 16 or the 18-year-old, because if you go back to Carlucia and you're 20 or 30 or 40 years old, you turn 16 also.
Oh, so no matter what, you were always 16 in Carlucia.
Correct.
Wow.
So it's funny because when Eddie sees all the pictures of the Guardians that had come there before him that he was related to, they're all 16 years old, and he gets to see his grandfather when he's 16.
Oh. Very interesting. The storyline, I feel like, is just going to capture readers.
Yeah. Well, we hope so. And we have a lot of people reading it now, and it's available at my website too. So you can get it at www.carlucia.com. Again, that's CARLOUSIA. And if you buy it from my website, I'll be glad to autograph it or put a little note in there for you. But you can also get it at Barnes & Noble, and you can get it at Amazon, and it's on the Nook and the Kindle.
Okay.
And it's available soon. I'm just waiting for Apple, but it's going to be on iBook, and it's also going to be on the Sony e-reader.
Awesome. So it's very accessible.
It's available wherever you would like. Like I said, if you just want one that's autographed or something like that, or a note put in there, I can do that for you. But if you want to get one quick, and they're actually on the shelf in some locations, but unfortunately that's probably just in Georgia, close by me. As we grow this, I was just published in December of last year, so it's been a short time.
Okay.
But we hope we can get some good steamroll going, right?
Definitely. I mean, it's a very interesting story. So I want to ask you about Carlucia a little bit more.
Sure.
What is what is it like? Is it supposed to be, I'm not sure of the word I'm looking for, creatures, like imaginary creatures, or are some things real?
Yeah, the Carlucia city is the main city in Carlucia, and it's sort of a melting pot of 4 regions of people that I guess in some ways you could describe them as creatures. They have the Ormocs, which are the mountain people, and they're very short and they're very hairy, and they have a unique ability to climb, and they can actually leap up mountains in just several jumps or bounds, and they can blend into the landscape, so it's sort of a camouflage type of power that they have. And then they have the Plains people, which are the Carians, and they have a Cary city, and they're tall and lean and can run fast. And we have. It was hard for me to write the book and not, what were you gonna? I had to get the characters wearing clothes, right? They couldn't wear our clothes going to Carlucia,
right?
So they have their own outfits, and I try to kind of weave my family things into it. The fleur-de-lis is part of my family crest, and so the fleur-de-lis is on most of the armor. Or Eddie has a chest plate and a shield and a new type of weapon called an arc that we created. It's a long piece of wood with a hole in the center that when you reach through and pinch your fingers and you pull it back, it actually shoots a blue flame or a blue light out the end of the arc. And the Icarians keep the arcs growing, and they make the arcs for the Carlucians. And then you have the Undrins, who are controlling this area of the south that's called the Swamp of Burpees, and the name kind of reveals what the swamp's doing, right? It's got a bunch of burp sounds when you walk by it. And that swamp is actually the energy for Carlucia, so they create this type of fuel that burns in Carlucia for lights and things like that. And the characters themselves, and everybody in Carlucia for that matter, has a bracelet, but it's not like Eddie's. Eddie's bracelet is called the Sapphire of Link, And the other bracelets that the Carlusians have kind of connect them to the things that go on in Carlusia. So to travel around Carlusia, Carlusians and Eddie and Dan and Scotty, they ride a Sulfin, which is an invisible worm that goes through the ground, and you click a puck in the back of it, and you kind of ride the puck like you would a skimboard. You know what a skimboard is that goes through the waves? Mm-hmm. It's shaped like a skimboard, and you ride it so you surf the invisible wave, right? So you ride it like a skateboard. And there's some characters that'll be introduced in the second book called the Shelleyrites, and they're the ocean-type people. So I guess Carlusia is probably going to be described, or maybe everybody would visualize in their head, it's more like a Caribbean peninsula.
Okay.
They have beautiful blue ocean around it, so I guess that's the way I would describe it. But it has mountains in the northeast, and it has a big wall that goes around to keep Lorzard out, and another warlord called Izamor.
Sounds very creative and descriptive.
Yeah, thank you.
It is. So why are they fighting what's the point of them fighting a war?
So they're not really fighting a war. So Lorzard is actually trying to conquer Carlusia, or Izamor tried it when Pop was alive. And he wants the natural resources of Carlusia to benefit himself, and he thinks if he can get the Sapphire of Link off Eddie's wrist, or any Guardian for that matter, that he could actually go through the portals and come into Drayton Woods.
Okay. Interesting. Now, this book seems very creative, and I feel like a lot of kids are going to be into it.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so let's move on and talk a little bit about why books are going back to basics.
Okay.
So what's your theory on this?
Well, I don't think we actually left. That's my theory. Okay. So I think if you think back maybe 10 or 12 years. So Narnia is an old book, but it's not about really violent vampires or ghosts or anything like that. And it was a very popular series a long time ago from a book standpoint. And now it was a popular movie series. And I think even Lord of the Rings, it's an old book that was written a long time ago, but still the movies took off very well. And I don't think, there was violence, or there was wars, or there was conquering and evil, but there really wasn't ghosts or witches or vampires. So I think it's just a trend to try to read different types of adventures. I don't think anybody's ever really left. Like one of my favorite books that I like to read, or authors I like to read in a series that's like mine, is Anthony Horowitz. It's an Alex Rider series. It's about a 14-year-old spy in MI6, and it's been made into a movie. So I think it's just people gravitate to what is new and cool, but I'm not so sure that they really moved away from one to the other. I think they like them all.
Okay, so you think kids are just looking for different stories but keeping the same idea.
Right. And I think when you introduce the tablets, right, the electronic piece to it, you have games that'll correlate to the book. So I know my sons will read a book on the tablet, and they'll also be playing a game that's like the book that they're reading. And then sometimes they go back to the book to try to figure out where they're stuck in the game. And I think parents want kids to read more, and I think with the Harry Potter series, that got kids reading a lot more, and then it was cool to read again. And I think that parents still want their kids to read. I think middle school kids still have the accelerated reader program, and they're made to read over the summer, and they have to read a certain amount of books during the year. So I think that the parents and the education system still want people to, or they still want the kids to read, but I think they're finding that kids are enjoying to try to tie it all together. They want to read the book, and then they want to play the game, and then when the movie comes out, they may want that on the tablet too. I know that when my kids are reading, when my kids are playing games on their tablets, I tell them, it's time to read. You need to read for an hour. What's easy for them just to switch over to a book, right?
Yeah, but the tablets, everything's right there.
Right. So I think with the tablet software, too, it's easier. It looks like a book, when you turn a page, the software makes it look like a book. And so I think that kids can carry more books around, too. So I think that you're going to find in the next 5 to 10 years that kids are going to read all kinds of books because they can store more on a tablet than they could carrying them around with them.
So in a way, technology isn't exactly hurting kids reading books. It is helping.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is. It's funny. I tried to get some of our close friends' kids to read my book before it was in a book form, right? And you give a kid a binder, and it's 3 inches thick, and it looks like something. They're a manual for for a computer, and I could never get any of them to really read it and give me the feedback until I had it in book form. And then when I put it in book form, they just read it in days. One kid couldn't wait for it to be in a book so she could carry it around with her to school, and she couldn't wait for it to be on her electronic tablet. And she read it in a 3-day period, and she's only 11 years old.
Oh, wow. Definitely seemed... I remember kids were doing that with Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Just reading it straight through. Couldn't put it down. That's good to see, especially, if you have examples of, this girl, she read it in 3 days, she's only 11. Reading isn't, as kids think, torturous as they believe it is.
And I tried to write the book so it's an adventure, right? You have to go from one step to another. Eddie moves into the neighborhood, then his grandfather. He meets Dan and Scotty, and then his grandfather dies. Then he has to go get the bracelet, and then he has to go to Carlucia. So it's a step-by-step kind of adventure to the end of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it nice, and it's a nice flow. Hopefully we can try to get it into some kind of a electronic game.
So you think you're going to stop at 4 books, or...?
I think I am. I think I've got 4 books in me. The second one, I'm about halfway through. And a lot of the feedback I'm getting from the first book is they want it to be longer, so more information in it. So that's going to take me a little while. I want to be fresh, and I want to have new ideas. So the constant creation of new ideas on the same storyline is going to be difficult for me. So 4 is probably about my limit. I don't know. If I get to 4, I might write the 5th one. But I've told both of my boys that if I did 4, and the whole legacy line is about a father or a grandfather allowing his 10-year-old grandson or son to go to Carlucia, and it's his turn to go, that maybe one of those, my 2 sons, could take over, and they could write further past the 4, right?
Yeah,
that would be very interesting. And they could just add on with their name.
That would be something. I like that idea.
Yeah.
So with the book, what is Eddie's mission through the series?
So at first you don't know, right? So you don't know what his mission is because he's kind of thrust into it. Then he realizes it's his job to keep Carlucia free. And it's his job to not let evil stop or hurt the people of Carlucia. So I think that's kind of resonates to everybody. If you're, kids or even parents, if your neighborhood was being attacked, you'd probably do anything you could to stand up to protect your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to just, as the series goes, there's another twist to it, too. Dan's got a young sister, and she's only really about 1.5 years behind Dan, and her name is Sarah Ellen, and she wants to go to Carlucia so bad, but she's helping the boys while they're gone, right? So like I said, I didn't want my characters to lie to their parents, because I just don't like that. I don't want them to lie, but then how do you keep a kid, a 10-year-old boy, away from his mother for days to fight evil? My face would be on a milk carton if my mom would have had me gone past 12 or 13 hours, probably not knowing where I am. But so I had to figure out this time continuum too. So Dan is a very technical character. He's a very scientific, science type kid, and he creates all these inventions. And so Eddie uses him to create a watch that can keep up with the time, because there's a big time continuum between Carlucia and Drayton Woods. It's around a 12-to-1 ratio. So for every hour you're gone away from Drayton Woods, you can stay 12 hours at Carlucia, so it slows down time.
Okay, so you're actually in Carlucia for 12 hours, but your parents think you're gone for an hour.
Right.
Okay.
And then when you're back in Drayton Woods, though, the reverse happens, right? It slows down in Carlucia. So the whole dynamics of Eddie going for the first time, they expect it to be Eddie's grandfather, and they don't even know who Eddie is. And they're like, well, we haven't seen Pop in 4 years, and it turns out it's really 44 years or so.
Oh, wow. That's a twist.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know, does Eddie resemble his Pop in Carlucia with both of them being 16?
A little bit,
A little?
in the picture they do, sure.
So I didn't know if it was like one of these identical replicas.
No.
that everyone... Okay.
Not an identical thing. And there's I don't want to say guardian because that's really not his job. He's like the teacher of Carlucia. His name's Torgy. And so Eddie's two main people that he deals with at the very beginning in Carlucia is Wahaha. That's his little 2-foot friend that only can say Wahaha. He can't talk or anything. And he has expressions and the things that he tries to get conveyed across with other ways of communicating. But the other guy that there is Torgy. And Torgy is from a long legacy of families that have taken care of the guardians, too, and trained them. So the portal actually opens in Torgy's library.
Everything seems to be tying together now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the series, do you think that Eddie's parents will ever believe him, or do you think that Eddie will ever get them into Carlucia?
Well, I've tried to put sneak peeks for the second book, so I don't want to tell too much about it, but Eddie's mother has a pretty good idea he's going.
Right. So she's a believer.
Well, she's not necessarily a believer, right? She's seen the bracelet before, and it's been on Pop's wrist. And then Eddie's dad's always kind of weird and moves around that whole subject and acts all standoffish when they talk about Carlucia or the bracelet. He's uncomfortable. And so his mom's kind of putting 2 and 2 together.
Okay, that's a good preview. With the book coming out, where are you going to be doing autograph signings? Anywhere around the country, or how are you going to? I
am. So, like I said, we just got started. I have 2 autograph signings at 2 bookstores this month, and that's my first 2.
Okay.
One is in Gainesville, Georgia, not Florida. So it's in Gainesville, Georgia at Hall's, is a bookstore in Gainesville, on the 30th. And in Barnes & Noble in Norcross in the Forum, I'm going to be signing books on the 31st from 12 until 5.
Okay. Are you going to be making your way up north at all?
I'm going to try. So I've got my manager's trying to schedule me, and the publicist is trying to schedule me. That's how they got in touch with you. So I'm kind of trying to create a snowball here so the people who are listening, if they can, or if someone is interested in having me come to their school, I'd love to. So the whole thing about writing the book is I wanted to try to go from schools to schools and tell kids that you can do whatever you set your mind to. It's sort of a motivational thing with me. I wanted to prove to my sons that they could do anything, but then I realized that there's probably a lot of kids out there that have dyslexia, or they have a learning disability, or they have something that's holding them back, and they have doubt in their mind that they should even try to do what they want to do as a dream. And I don't want people to be that way. I don't want people to think that just because you can't do it 100% doesn't mean that you can't be involved some way or try to achieve it.
Yeah, right. Your personal story and the book story, it's so intriguing and interesting. I feel that readers are definitely going to catch on to both.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. So is there anything else that we didn't cover today?
No, I don't think so. Actually, you covered probably more than anybody else has pulled out of me with this book. You're pretty good.
I'm trying.
I usually don't try to tell too much of the story because I want you to read it in the book. But
I definitely think our readers are going to get out to bookstores, though. It seems so... I know I'm interested in it now.
Well, I enjoyed this interview very much, and you're doing a great job at pulling information out of me.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, and good luck to you and everything.
Oh, thank you very much. And like I said, everybody, you can go to... We have a Facebook page, too. You can join my fan page. It's E.G. Carter. Is the fan page, and like I said, go to www.carlucia.com, and you can send us an email, you can write a review, you can do a lot of things. It's a pretty nice website for interactive.
Great. I'm definitely going to be looking forward to that, and so are our listeners. So thanks again, and I look forward to reading your books.
Oh, well, thank you very much, and I'd like to hear your feedback on what you think after you read it.
Definitely. Take care.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Tune in again next week to find out more about what's happening in your county, your city, and your neighborhood.
It's all here on Radio Disney's Backyard Show.
The once a week Tell Me What's Going On Around Here radio program.
Brought to you by Radio Disney.